clawed his way back to an environment that's not terribly supportive, and probably still many will never accept that he's an equal.
I was very excited to get back into a Blackhawk again and strap one on and go for a ride.
Hello, I'm Caroline Jones. Tonight's Australian Story is about a young army officer who's won international recognition as a trailblazer. He's Captain Glenn Todhunter. 9 years ago, he was a Black Hawk helicopter pilot with an assured career and everything to live for. That all changed without warning, in a matter of seconds. This is his story.
When you're in a glider, it's such a unique environment. Sitting under the base of these big fluffy white clouds, you can almost see forever, and there's nobody there, and it's whisper quiet. And sometimes you get the real privilege of having an eagle or a bird that will pull into your wingtip when you're in a turn and just sort of look up at you, and and he's doing the same as you.
Flying for Glenn is a passion. It's something that's in his blood. It's how he was brought up.
As soon as I turned 16, I had a student pilot's licence. Somebody had said to me, look, you can go and join the military and they'll pay you to learn to fly. I thought, that sounds really good, as well as the fact they, operate some pretty fantastic aircraft. I still remember my first flight in the Blackhawk. It was just really awe-inspiring. What a great piece of machinery this thing really was. And I just fell in love with it instantly.
Blackhawk 103 ready. 103, everyone contact approach to taxi Bravo to the west, clear for takeoff, link right.
It was a pinnacle, and a lot of guys aspired. They just wanted to go, to get their captaincy on a Blackhawk.
Trying to work out a way in the valley here, opening up to west 11.
To get Army wings is no mean feat. It's tough. So when you get there, you do feel special. He was a junior officer with command responsibility and showed all the hallmarks of being a great leader.
I was young and brash and, arrogant. I've no doubt about that in my time. That's how I was conditioned. There's a lot of the guys in the crew room at the time that, they had these sort of blonde Barbie bombshell lookalikes that they were going out with, and Michelle didn't fit that mould at all. She had her own Virago 250 motorbike, and she had a silver stud in her nose.
Glenn used to, ride on the back of my motorbike with me, and that used to be a bit of a joke because I used to call him my onion, and give him a bit of a slap on the bottom, and when we'd stop at lights just to embarrass him and things like that. Like any couple, you get swept up in the whole thing, and you're madly in love, and bang, it was changed, and our life was to be different from that day forth.
Jeff, good to see you again. Good seeing you too.
I was involved with a local ultralight club who had asked if I would be interested in doing some voluntary instructing.
I was keen to see Glenn because of his professionalism and his approach. I thought he would make a very good instructor. So we commenced the training.
We'd been flying for about an hour. We were practicing a procedure called practice engine failure after takeoff, where you basically simulate the engine's failed. I'm playing the role of the instructor. Jeff was playing the role of the student. He deliberately mishandles the emergency to see at what point I'm going to take over and recover the situation and what I'm going to do. There was no warning, just full power, and then the engine just goes to idle. You're losing airspeed quickly. You've got to do something about it. So I just said, taking over.
Taking over.
The airspeed decayed incredibly rapidly. Hair stood up on the back of my neck.
And then the controls just went limp. It was starting to go into a spin.
I was certainly staring death in the face, but my mind was in overload.
We're, looking straight at the ground, knowing, without having to think about it, that there wasn't enough height to recover from this.
My last words, according to Glenn, were
then it was just black, just lights out. I came to sort of slowly, and my first instinct, was like, how's Jeff? His face had impacted the instrument panel, and he was bleeding, a lot. And I just wanted to make sure he was okay. I grabbed his harness, and I was able to put it around his forehead to keep his head back and make sure he had a clear airway. And then I looked down, and it was like somebody turning a light switch on, this immense pain. I just started screaming. And then I noticed fuel dripping out of the right wing tank. The battery was sort of swinging on a lead, and I was very concerned about a fire. I grabbed what was remaining of the strut of the wing and pulled. Something, I think, tore and gave way, and I just dug my fingernails into the dirt, and that's the way I managed to pull myself on my stomach. I think the adrenaline ran out, and I just stopped. And that time I remember Jeff started moaning.
And I pulled myself out of the aeroplane and just collapsed.
We were the only people on the airfield at about 10:30 in the morning, and there was nobody due there until about 5 o'clock that afternoon.
My right foot was hanging off like a lamb shank. I was like, Jesus, that's going to hurt tomorrow.
I just knew with the way the legs were that I wasn't going anywhere. And I'd said that to Jeff.
Get up to go get help, mate.
So I set off crawling. My right arm buckled and bent, and so I realised my right arm was broken.
I could hear sort of sliding and the rustling of the grass, so I knew he was sort of moving. The sound got less and less and less and less, and so I started to panic. It's like, Jeff, you okay? And he yelled up, yelled out, shut up, you stupid bugger, and conserve your energy. And it's like, okay. And he kept going, and that was it. And then he was gone. He could be unconscious 100 metres away, and I wouldn't know about it.
Crawled on a bit further, got to the windsock, and thought, I got to rest. And then I saw Rusty, and Rusty was coming along the taxiway towards me, and as she got closer then, her ears pricked up, and the expression on her face just changed so much.
Rusty, good boy.
And she walked away a little bit, and she just sat down and howled. And I said, Rusty, I'm hurt bad, please help me. She came back and she licked my face, and she just started to walk away, and she'd walk away about 10 feet and wait for me, and I followed her.
I do remember feeling that, if Jeff didn't make the telephone, that, literally that could be it for me. What I was really upset about was the fact that I'd fallen in love with this fantastic woman, and I might not get to see her again.
I had to get under a fence. I tried to get up, and I couldn't get up. It was the first time I thought I might die. It was the fact that I thought, you can't die. What about Glenn?
And Rusty never left his side. Finally, 3 hours later, he was, really spent.
Finally made it. I couldn't believe it.
The first thing I knew that Jeff had made the telephone as I started to hear the very faint sounds of a helicopter coming in the distance. I was like, God, please let that be, for us. 2 people came rushing up to me, and I said, there's 2 of us in the aeroplane, and they said, it's okay, mate, you're in shock. And I grabbed him, reached up, and I grabbed him by the scruff of the shirt and pulled him down to me, and I said, 2 people in this aeroplane. My friend is badly injured. You need to go and get him now. And then let his, collar go, and he said, okay. And then he ran off.
Over here, found him.
And this paramedic just turned to his mates and yelled out, he's here.
Glenn, all right?
And I said, have you found Glenn? Is he all right? And I said, yeah, don't worry, we've got him.
They then started to cut my jeans off and started to manipulate the leg.
I'm sorry about that. Glenn, I'm just going to put this collar on, all right?
And it started to get a little bit blurry from there because I guess the morphine took effect.
Sure, Glenn's all right. Okay, where else does it hurt, Jeff?
Back in my arm. Rusty, where's my girl?
I said, please look after Rusty, eh? Please, somebody look after Rusty. They said, don't worry, we'll take care of your dog.
With a broken back and fractured limbs, Mr. Britton crawled a kilometre to telephone for help. His faithful dog Rusty keeping him from passing
Emergency
out.
crews have no doubt it was the instructor's heroic effort that saved the lives of both men.
A phenomenal effort, I suggest, yeah.
They took me down to the chopper. And I'd already loaded Glenn in. They slid the stretcher in beside Glenn's and then Glenn's hand reached over. Touched mine and we held hands. I knew he was alive and okay. Yeah. Thank Christ.
We were like 5 months into a relationship where, you know, love conquers all, doesn't it?
I knew she was there. I felt the presence. I remember having a thought that, I think it could probably just slip away. It was almost like a choice.
I talked to him constantly about the future that we hadn't embarked on. Like, you can't go now because we've only just begun, We've only just started this whole journey, and if you bail out now, what a pie cut. How can you just do that?
And I woke up and there was a frame over the bed, and the frame was keeping the weight of the sheets off my legs, and I couldn't see them. But I knew that, there was obviously something going on down there, and I didn't have the courage for a number of days. Basically walked my fingers across my chest to say, can I walk?
Yes, and that's because that's all you did, because you couldn't talk.
That's right.
You're in a really, really bad accident.
I grabbed him and I said to him, you've lost both your legs, they've had to amputate both your legs, but you will walk again and you will fly again. And I promise you that I will stay by your side until we achieve those goals again.
We'll get through it together.
And I asked how Glenn was, and I said he's okay. And then they told me they had to amputate both his feet. And it was, one hell of a shock. I didn't know at the time, but they were contemplating chopping mine off as well, right foot.
Flight instructor Jeff Britton has been hailed a hero.
But I remember Michelle coming to see me. I remember her leaning down to kiss me. She said, thank you.
Then the ventilator tube came out. He said, come closer. And so I sort of went closer.
The poor bugger, the first thing I whispered in her ear was, will you marry me, So her eyeballs go like this.
And for your first words to be, will you marry me? I'd imagine you'd done some serious soul searching in that time about what you want your life to be.
At this stage we're still discussing which legs we've got to get. My squadron commander brought all of the pilots in for a visit just to, cheer me up, and it was quite confronting. And that, I think, was a realisation that, Glenn's out of the equation. He is gone. He is no longer, one of us. The disappointment just never stops, It's just keep on coming. We'll work through it. I'm not happy for someone to fondle my legs, Barry. And we said, if I'm going to get back to flying, and I'm really actually going to pull this off, I'm going to need the best help that's available out there. So we moved to Canberra late in March of '96.
You're stumped.
I think the two of them had a plan. And Michelle's plan was that Glenn was going to succeed at his.
Hold it up.
When I saw the legs, and they weren't much to look at, I thought, this is going to be quite interesting, They don't look very comfortable.
I like your new look.
Can't say they're the most comfortable shoes I've ever put on.
It's not comfortable. It does hurt. It isn't easy to walk.
Guys,
Wacky do.
You know, I stood up, which was great. It was like, wow, look how high I'm off the ground.
Jesus, I'm almost dizzy standing up the sun.
It was a triumph, you know. I could get out of the wheelchair. You know, really felt for, you know, all those people that can't get out of wheelchairs. So I was very, very lucky.
What you want to do is step out. Just a short step with the flat foot, and then as you walk on, look forward.
How many tears, you know, through that video camera, you know, it was all often fogged up, and we'd laugh, and you know.
Excellent.
So it was, yeah, it was an overwhelming experience.
That's great, honey. You're such a champion.
Don't kiss me, Dad. Just polished off a couple of scotches in celebration of first time walking in 7 months.
I had the greatest admiration for Michelle, and
That's not good enough.
her support for Glenn was just unwavering and incredible. I suppose I envied Glenn in a way like that.
Yes. What a champion.
Because it is so important. It really is. I know.
It's not going too bad. I'm a bit tiring. I'm getting a bit sick of the routine.
There were some very, very difficult moments and some very down moments where I'm sure at times Glenn thought, this is not going to work. It is too hard.
Wow. Tempting our steps for the first time.
Walking's easy compared to flying steps.
Glenn's capable of anything he sticks his mind to.
Time to open the door.
If you said to him, climb Mount Everest backwards with 100 pounds of pack on your back, he'd just look at you and say, when do I have to be there? And he'd do it.
You thought that was a spatula. Now that's a spatula.
Early in '97, I was walking independently, reacquired my driver's licence. They said, oh, you're going to have hand controls. And I said, well, no, I'm not. I can drive a car. You know, I'll meet you halfway. If I do a driving test without hand controls and I pass, how about you give me a licence? And they said, okay. Maybe it was naivety on my part, but in my mind, I was always going to fly again. I don't know how, and I don't know how long it's going to take, but I am going to get there.
I started to look at how we would rehabilitate someone back to flying, if it was going to be possible, given the uniqueness of his injuries, and it had never been done before in the Defence Force. And to do that, firstly, he had to satisfy everybody that someone with such a disability could be safe.
Just climb in, Glenn, and make yourself comfortable.
The first time I flew was about 18 months after the accident. It was in Canberra, and it was an assessment for me to get my civil pilot's licence back.
There was no anxiety on that day. There was just this rush that he was there. And it was amazing just to stand there and watch this. It was like a kid in a lolly shop that I'm back. This is mine, and I'm alive.
How do you get the brake pressure on? Is it just by pushing on?
I push in the knees. A very senior instructor came along.
He's probably got as much strength in his legs as I've got when I try and interrupt.
We'd go down the runway and he'd try and steer me off, and I had to overpower him with my legs just to demonstrate there was enough leg strength and dexterity on the pedals.
Unusual for a helicopter pilot to do so well in a fixed wing.
Being back at the controls again, it was almost like getting out of the wheelchair. You know, it was like being free again. It was fabulous.
Good stuff, Glenn.
It was fun.
Emergency egress when you're happy.
And having breakfast with Jeffrey, yay!
Jeff has, you know, an amazing spirit and a zest for life. But on the other side, this whole 9 years has come at a cost for him. Financially, he hasn't had the support of an employer to help him with, you know, the financial side, the medical bills. From my experience, that was, you know, incredibly, you know, helpful to me.
Jeffrey, what's your New Year's resolution?
To get more than to check out this blind date that
He, I don't think, has had for a lot of the years the consistency of a loving partner by his side.
There's no sense of who was responsible or what happened between Glenn and myself. Except what happened.
Look at that.
Sudden loss of airspeed can be occasioned by flying into a willy-willy and getting a severe tailwind.
I can't even remember who.
How do you blame, a freak of nature? My doctor said that crashes robbed you of a career. With my injuries, I was basically unemployable. It's just a sad fact of life. However, you change your goals, change your dreams, and adjust your life accordingly.
The path for getting back to military flying started with being assessed on their most basic sort of helicopter, training helicopter.
It took a couple of years basically for the paperwork to get exchanged and assessments to be carried out.
For me, ultimately, you know, I wanted to get back onto the Blackhawk, and that's really where I was going from the very start anyway. I remember somebody saying to me once, you know, but it's not been done before, so statistically your chances aren't very good, are they? You know, it's like, well, I don't care.
He just became so focused and so obsessed. I just couldn't communicate with him, and he could only see and hear what his agenda was. So that has definitely been at times a conflict with us, because it's like, well, you know, I'm a team player, but if you're going to run solo, then, you know, there's obviously consequences for that.
I was very excited to get back into a Blackhawk again and strap one on and go for a ride.
Start it up and you get the smell and the noise and the vibration. To be able to put my artificial feet on the pedals and pick it up into the hover and go flying again just was an immense, you know, sense of satisfaction.
It had been a couple of years since he'd actually flown a mission in a Blackhawk, and I watched him very closely, and it was though Glenn had never, ever not been in the seat. He just got in and flew the thing, and it did everything that was asked of him. He knew he was going to make it, and it was obvious to everybody. And when I told a couple of the crewies in the back that he'd lost his legs, they just thought I was pulling their leg, so to speak.
I was supposed to be, you know, then going on instructor's course. That didn't happen, and so I spent another 2 years continuing to drive a desk. And, you know, I flew intermittently, but it wasn't a full-time flying job. I think it wasn't within everybody's paradigm that I should be flying. A lot of people made it known that I shouldn't be.
He has been committed and not ever let them down in this whole time. All the bureaucracy, all the red tape, all the scrutinising, he has stuck with all of that when he could have put his hands up and said, you know, it's all a bit too hard and I don't really need to prove anything to anyone.
The fight has really been the fight against people's prejudices in their own minds. He's clawed his way back to an environment that's not terribly supportive, and probably still many will never accept that he's an equal. And knowing that is hard.
And it was at the time I said, well, okay, well, I've got to look at other options. If they're not going to let me go and instruct, then I'll find something else to do. And was posted in 2002 to the present time in a surveillance squadron as the squadron's second in command. And had a great time. They're a great bunch of guys.
We have a 4-tiered medical system, and I'd been on the bottom rung of the ladder trying to fend off medical discharge for 7 years. But in September last year I was reclassified to Class 2, so security of tenure was no longer an issue, which was a great relief.
It's been a long, hard journey and taken probably a lot longer than it probably could have to get to where he is now. In other words, fit for employment and deployment, where he can hold his own.
I mean, to be accepted as the only bilateral amputee that I know of anywhere in the world still actively serving in the armed forces is mind-boggling. Since Douglas Bader in World War II.
It's been coming on 9 years now, and I'm really appreciative that I got the opportunity to get back. You know, I love being up here. I can't go flying often enough, which some people must think it's a little ironic, but it's what I love to do. I love it.
Late last December, I had the great pleasure of flying General Peter Cosgrove, our Chief of Defence Force, from East Timor back to Darwin. To be the aircraft captain, getting to fly the big man, for me, after all these years of slowly working my way up from the bottom, was a great thrill. And I got home and Michelle said, "So did you tell him?" And it's like, tell him what? You know, what are we going to say? OK, sir, well, I'm just strapped in and flight time is about an hour and a half, and by the way, I've got no legs. You know, but I'll get you there safely.
I think this could be a new profession for you.
You know, I really feel like at this point in time that there is change in the air for me.
Here you go, guys.
I look back on my, 16 years of service with great pride, but, I do feel that I am coming towards the end of my time in the service. And I know when the time comes to leave, it'll be a happy parting of ways.
I think this is the yummy dinner ever. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
nice,
Dad
isn't it,
cooked
being
it.
here
I
in the
think you should
park?
cook more often, Dad.
I can do barbecues, that's about it.
I've achieved everything I set out to achieve and possibly a little bit more. But now I choose the family.
Hello! Hi, Dad. How you going?
I'm intensely proud, Glenn, for what he's achieved.
Good to see you. I'm going to look at you. Yeah, mate, you're going to be thin on top.
I look at his kids and, yeah, it was worth the pain and the effort.
This guy, he was just in a pram the last time you saw him.
I want, my kids to grow old with that man. They'll know Uncle Jeff, and it'll be validation for him.
Couldn't help themselves, They were supposed to go to sleep. I knew Uncle Jeff was coming over, so...
We never, ever forget our anniversary. But Glenn and I aren't celebrating the accident. We're celebrating the anniversary of the fact that we're still alive. And we're still able to laugh and love and enjoy life.